It's finally here, the true successor to the 8BitDo Ultimate controller. It's the Ultimate 2. This is a Bluetooth controller that works on Windows or Nintendo Switch, so this is the natural choice if you're looking for a Pro controller on Nintendo Switch because it has so many features that makes it ideal as a Pro controller, but also has the ability to be like the Switch Pro controller where you've got these trigger buttons that are actually buttons instead of full-on triggers. You've got switches like this, but everything else has also been upgraded. You've also got L4 and R4 buttons in addition to the back paddles that you used to have, and you've also got these little new LED rings that have these lighting effects that spin around. TMR uses quantum tunneling. The question is the D-pad really good enough for fighting games? Well, I've got a good detailed test for you today. Let's jump in and find out. Just realized that jump in is quite a good fighting game reference. Might use that again. Quick disclaimer here, 8BitDo sent this to me for the purposes of making this video, but I don't have to send it back at the end. I haven't been instructed to say anything specific about it, and all opinions are my own. Alright, as you can see, I've got Street Fighter 6 loaded up here, and it's time to show you the main features of the Ultimate 2, the true successor to the Ultimate. Starting here first with the D-pad, which is probably, arguably, the most important part of a pad controller. We've got our left, we've got our right, we've got our crouch down, and we've got our jump up. I'm also having absolutely no issue with the diagonals on this D-pad because it's got a tactile feel. They're not clicky buttons, you don't hear an audible click, but you do feel a tactile bump every time you press these D-pad buttons, and it gives you a really solid feeling that you definitely have pressed the 3 directions necessary: down, down, forward, forward, so that you can do your fireballs or your tatsus. So those are the basics of the D-pad, and I'm just happy that I'm able to actually get a jump forward or a jump backwards every single time I want. I feel very, very confident that I've got the actual diagonal because you feel a different kind of tactile bump when you've pressed 2 switches at the same time, which is up and right or up and left. If you should so choose, you can also use the analog stick. As you can see, what's really cool about these analog sticks is that you've got that color. That color follows it around, or if you're using the right analog stick, it will mirror all that color to the left. And of course, if you're using both analog sticks, they are independent. You can have the purple color following it around like so. And actually, if you press this star button here, you can go through your different modes. So there's a red light that goes around. The third one is just a solid color with no following around. And then you can just switch them off as well. Let's say you're playing at night and it's just too bright and it's kind of shining your eyes. Next, I want to show you these face buttons. As you can see, they're arranged like on a Nintendo Switch. So instead of X, Y, A, B, you've got Y, X, B, A. They feel absolutely as solid as they need to be. I have no issue pressing multiple buttons at the same time to do my throw shortcut, or pressing 2 buttons at the same time to get my parry, which is also my drive rush. But those are just the 4 main face buttons. When you look at the top of the controller, this is where it starts to get interesting, because unlike the original Ultimate controller, you now also have this extra R4 button, which is a fantastic location for it if you're playing something like Street Fighter, because in a game like Street Fighter 6, you want to be able to dash forward like this at any moment. You've also got to love how it's actually labeled upside down compared to regular controllers. R1, R2, R4 actually facing you when you've tilted the controller towards you. Never noticed anything like that before. So just to confirm, if I press the right stick button in, it's also the same as R4. They're basically mapped to the exact same thing in the software, which I can change. But now, as you can see, it's really easy to let my right hand focus on buttons and my left hand focus on the D-pad. So when I want to do a dash in like this, I don't need to use my left trigger. I can go like this using my right index finger and my left thumb. And to show you how I would finish off this setup to make it absolutely perfect, I'll use my other shortcut, which is drive impact. Normally you have to press 2 strong buttons, my R1 and R2 buttons at the same time. But if we go into the settings, we can now change this to my extra button, which, as you can see on the back of the controller, says PR, which is my right paddle button. So I'll just press that to set it. So if I need to parry or if I need to drive rush, I just use my right index finger, and I can use my right paddle if I need to do a drive impact. I'll tell you what makes the Ultimate 2 controller a little bit better than some of the other options out there is sometimes they have 2 paddle buttons, but having the button up here just makes it so much easier to have them separated. Just like my index finger is for this shortcut, my middle finger is for this shortcut. It's not really an advantage over other controllers, but this is definitely how I would prefer to use my shortcuts. I'll now just show you the other feature of this controller, which is being able to adapt the triggers. So at the moment it's set to use the full range of travel, and as I go through that full range, you can see that pink line going all the way around this LED ring. We now have these extra switches here. If I click them in like so, and you can do them independently for the left and the right sides, now it turns it from a trigger into just a button. Apparently this is a big deal for Splatoon, and as you can see, it's the full actuation. I'm not like halfway along just because you're not getting the full throw. Now personally, I find this really jarring because I've played on pad controllers that have triggers for such a long time that it's really weird for me for the triggers to not go all the way down. So I actually just leave it with the triggers not clicked in like this. I have them with the full range of motion, but you'll know if you would appreciate this feature. Now there is one thing that I want to bring up right now when I'm talking about the D-pad, and it's this. It's the fact that it kind of skips the neutral down, and I noticed this on the 8-bit Ultimate 2 C controller as well. Depends how fast you do it, but I would say that I have a sort of 25% hit rate of actually getting it to come out. Now, I always switch over to this game under Night In-Birth to demonstrate this, but something that's very common in this game is pressing down, forward, and the C button in order to do your anti-air. And in this particular combo, I need to go from down, forward, C to a quarter circle back and A. But as you'll see, it won't come out. If you check the input history, you can see I went from down, forward, C directly to down back C. Even though I rolled past the down direction when I went from down forward to down back, the down just doesn't get registered. The other thing I'm not super keen on with this D-pad, and this is not really a fault, is that the D-pad is in the Xbox position. This makes it kind of frustrating because all the angles that I'm used to from playing on a PlayStation pad means that they're kind of down here. And this is kind of, in my opinion, not the optimal place to put it because of just the diagonal angle that you come at the D-pad. But what's really frustrating is that almost all other things considered, this is actually a really nice D-pad and just feels like the change that they made to the tactility of the D-pad, so you really feel kind of the clickiness as it goes around. It makes you feel very, very confident when you're using this D-pad. So it's just such a shame that it skips down in neutral when you're going from down forward to down back. Now, something that's really nice about the dock on the 8BitDo Ultimate 2 is that when you're plugged in with a USB cable to your computer, you don't need to plug in the dongle separately. So this controller is wireless, but the dongle is not actually plugged into the computer directly. It's still plugged into the base down here in the storage compartment. The dongle is using pass-through to go through this cable and over to the computer. If you don't require the dock for charging, maybe you charge separately or you just don't like the extra bulk of it, you can just plug this directly into your computer or your Switch. When it is plugged in here and charging, you will actually see this little light here, but of course it's facing down, so you only see it if you've got a desk that will reflect that light back up. One thing that is a bit of a shame with the dock though is that while the controller is charging using the dock, it can't actually be connected to the computer at the same time. It's actually been disconnected. If I remove it from here, I mean, obviously you're not going to be playing with it while it's connected, but the thing is, sometimes you just want to put it down, just leave it somewhere, and you don't want to leave it on your table instead. You just want to leave it on the dock. And in that situation, you go from the game being connected like this, and for Street Fighter 6, fortunately, it's not an issue. But if you leave it down here in the dock, it disconnects, and then it's like, you take it off the dock and it has to like reconnect and everything. And this is sort of a non-issue, but because it's USB-C, I don't actually have USB-C ports. So actually for me, I kind of always go through the dock because I just need it to be plugged in like this. Now there are some other details like the fact that these analog sticks are not Hall effect technically, they're TMR, which apparently uses quantum tunneling, which is insane. I think anything that involves quantum anything being used for video games is kind of awesome. Now this is easily one of the most annoying things about 8BitDo software, and it's the fact that a number of them use different software. So we've got 8-bit Ultimate software, we've got Ultimate V2 software, and we also have Ultimate X software, and I wish they would just call them completely different things. They're all called Ultimate software, which is really frustrating. It's just like, which one? And now that we're in the software, we have access to our settings. I can create a new profile. If we go to Windows, you can see my current profile, which I've just called NihongoGamer, and you can see that we can switch between 3 different profiles using this button here. You can remap pretty much everything, including the D-pad. You can change the D-pad to be like the left trigger button if you wanted it to be. You can also just completely switch off buttons if they're frustrating you. And if you want to change the shoulder buttons or the buttons on the back, you click back over here and you've got access to the R4 button, and you also have access to macros. You can actually just record things like this, click start, and it will actually give you the option to change the milliseconds in between each one. This menu can be a little bit confusing because it doesn't show you diagonals, it just shows you that you've pressed down and right at the same time. The macro looks like it makes absolutely no sense with downs, rights, and ups and letting goes of buttons. But when you're actually in the game, if you press the macro, works just fine. You also have lots of stuff that you can change with regards to the dead zone. You can completely invert the axis, so right is left and left is right. And I'm sure this is going to be useful for left-handers or something, but instead of having the right analog stick here on the right, you can actually change it to be swapped. So let's say that you're a one-handed gamer and you want to have directional control with your right thumb, but you want to be able to press the buttons with the face buttons over here. You can completely do that. It's actually quite a really awesome feature. And you can even flip the D-pad and the joystick so that the D-pad is actually just got digital control of the analog stick, and the analog stick will kind of control the D-pad for games that don't allow you to change that setting itself. Moving over to the triggers, you can see I've got the full 0 to 100 range, but if you change the range on here, it means that even if you only go 13% along the way, you will get to 100% actuation. Just like the analog sticks, you can also swap them. There are 5 different settings for vibration. You completely set it off. You can have it around 3, let it vibrate a little bit, or if you could put it on 5, it vibrates a lot. I wouldn't say this is the strongest vibration I've ever felt. And last but absolutely not least, you have quite a lot of control over the RGB. You can change the speed of the spinning around on the fire ring mode. You can have it nice and fast, or you can have it nice and slow. And what's quite nice is you actually have separate settings for your Windows profiles, and your Switch profiles are a completely different set of 3 profiles. So honestly, I think that's everything there is to say about the 8BitDo Ultimate 2 controller. It's definitely improvement over the Ultimate. It is just a shame that the neutral down skipping is still an issue. I think 8BitDo doesn't actually realize how close they are to having an actual Ultimate controller if they would just change this one little thing. So in conclusion, this controller has no business being this good. It really should not be offering so many features and such good performance and such a good feel in general at this price. It's just that if I wanted to use it in fighting games, it needs this one very critical fix. Ah, you're so close! Well, that's it for this review of the 8BitDo Ultimate 2 controller. If you've been thinking about using it for fighting games, in certain situations, it might actually be totally fine. It's just so frustratingly close. It's like, it's right there. Like, maybe they think that more dedicated makers can focus on fighting game controllers, and they can be the ones that just focus on these more general things, like it's a Switch controller, so it's, you could use it for Splatoon. It's like, you could actually have a pretty strong fighting game controller if you would just look a little bit closer at this D-pad, because you are so close. That being said, if you're not heavily reliant on the D-pad, you just want to use it for the fact that it's got TMR joysticks in here which use quantum tunneling, I still think that's hilarious. There's so much to love here, and as far as I can tell, it's the same price as the previous controller, so it just slots straight in. But anyway, that's it for today's video. I've been NihongoGamer, hope you've enjoyed this. I'll see you real soon.